This is a Genesis GV70, a luxury mid-size SUV from Korea. Now, if you're not familiar with the Genesis brand, it's Hyundai's luxury arm in the same way that Lexus is Toyota's luxury arm. But this could be its most important model because it does play in that popular mid-size space. It could be the first SUV to put Genesis on the map in Australia. We're going to take a look at the entire GV70 range for this review. Before we do, remember to check out the full written review over on carsguide.com.au. And if you are watching on YouTube and are enjoying our videos, remember to hit like, subscribe, and the bell notification icon just to stay up to date with all of our latest content. This video will be sliced up into our 8 review segments with time codes you'll see on your screen now. So now is your chance to skip ahead to the part that interests you. If you are watching on YouTube, then they will be in the timeline or in the description below. First up, pricing and specs. Now, Genesis really does have its work cut out for it here because it is entering the fray against such recognizable competition. Cars like the Mercedes-Benz GLC, BMW X3, and Lexus RX. The GV70 range is pretty keenly priced compared to the competition though, starting from here and working its way up to here. This essentially means each equivalent grade of the GV70 can be had at far less the cost of rivals, particularly at the top end of the range. But interestingly, Genesis isn't offering any hybrid variants, at least to begin with. Instead, the brand offers 3 variants based on the available engines, with 2 packages to customize even further. Those variants are split into the 2.5 turbo, either as a rear or all-wheel drive, a 2.2-litre diesel, and a 3.5-litre V6, both of which are all-wheel drive only. Standard items include 19-inch alloy wheels, a 14.5-inch multimedia touchscreen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto connectivity, an 8-inch digital dashboard, leather seats, dual-zone climate control, and LED headlights. The 4-cylinder petrol and diesel variants can be equipped with a Sportline pack at the price you'll see on your screen now, while the additional items contained are standard on the top-spec V6. Said items include sportier alloys, a sport brake package, real exhaust finishes sticking out the bumper, sportier highlight trims for the exterior, Napa leather interior trim, and a different steering wheel. Meanwhile, every variant can be equipped with a luxury pack, which adds a larger 12.3-inch digital dash with a 3D depth effect, Napa leather quilted seat trim, 21-inch alloy wheels, tri-zone climate control, a head-up display, remote parking assist, a heated steering wheel, premium audio system, and an additional low-speed reverse auto braking system. The GV70 is a damn good-looking car. It oozes design with its strong signature points like that big chrome grille, muscular stance, sleek alloy wheel designs, and slotted headlight fittings which cut a body line across the length of this SUV to match those lights at the rear. The tough stance, particularly around the rear, alludes to its sporty nature, while the chrome touches and surprisingly delicate lines communicate its luxuriousness. This is something that's hard to do. It's hard to make a new design balance these elements so well, but I think it's something Genesis is achieving well across its entire range. Importantly, this car brings some fresh ideas to a segment which at times can feel a little samey. I think if nothing else, it puts other design-led brands like Porsche and Volvo on notice. On the inside, and things really do continue. The GV70 doesn't look or feel anything like its sedan donor car, the G70, instead bringing some more of the luxurious elements from its larger GV80 SUV sibling. The standard 2-spoke steering wheel is a statement all on its own, but the surprisingly elegant cut of the dash, which is also clad in generous soft trims, is a step above what's come before. It's properly luxurious, and in case you were wondering, it feels nothing like a Hyundai. Sitting behind the wheel of the Genesis GV70, and you can tell that the brand is really on the same playing field as its luxury rivals. And I think what took me aback the most about it is even though this is essentially an SUV version of the G70 sedan, it's totally different on the inside. This interior design, a lot of it comes from the larger GV80 big SUV. This amazing raised console, these Nice trims all through the doors, this amazing 2-spoke wheel. Now keep in mind you do get a separate wheel if you do opt for the sport pack, one that resembles the one in the G70 sedan. It's a bit sportier, it's a 3-spoke wheel. And it is heavily digitized in here as well. There's a digital climate control unit which really slots into this design beautifully. And there's a huge multimedia touchscreen, and that was an issue that we had with early Genesis models. The small touchscreens just looked like they were dropped straight out of Hyundai products, but this is properly its own design. It's really quite impressive. The GV70's cabin is pretty practical, all things considered. I think the brand's done a fantastic job of the seating position, which blends great visibility, but also gives you a bit of a sporty feel. It also has great soft trims all through the dash, all across into the doors, all across this center console here, and even the seats are clad in a really nice trim, and that doesn't matter which grade you pick. Whether or not you have the luxury pack or the sport pack, even the base seats are pretty good in this car as well. Now, interestingly, our CarsGuide test bottle doesn't fit in the door pockets of this car, but it does fit in these variable center ones here. There's a large center console box with a single power outlet and a flip open tray here, which has an upright wireless charging bay for your phone and 2 USB ports in there as well. Now, the multimedia screen in here is quite far away, but it still does operate as a touch screen. But the preferred method for operation is this control dial down here. And that can be a little bit clumsy to use things like Apple CarPlay or navigation with, but probably the most annoying thing about it is multiple times when I've gone to change gears in this car, instead of grab the gear dial, I've grabbed the multimedia dial because they're right next to each other. All right, in the back seat of the GV70, and I find I actually have quite a lot of room in here. There's heaps of room for my knees, heaps of room for my head, and I only have to slightly duck under that descending roofline to get in and out. One thing I did notice when I was getting in and out is these soft trims continue into the doors, but most importantly, Genesis goes to lengths to point out that anything that looks metal in this car probably is actually metal, which is pretty cool. Practicality wise, you've got some nets on the backs of the front seats. You've got a pocket in the doors here which just holds this bottle, and you have a drop down armrest as well with more bottle holders, and again that's trimmed in that nice trim in this luxury car as well. Now, luxury pack cars also get a third climate zone for rear passengers, but non-luxury cars don't, and that is regardless of which engine you pick. You do get 2 adjustable air vents with lock-offs as well. There's also a power outlet down there as well, and there's coat hooks here and here. And in an unusual extra touch, you also get built-in sun visors in the doors. Boot space is a good story in the GV70. Despite its descending roofline, it offers a decent space with the seats up, which proved to be plenty of room for our CarsGuide demo luggage set. There are 3 engines in the GV70 range. The base engine is a 2.5 litre 4-cylinder turbo petrol engine, and that can be chosen in either rear or all-wheel drive. Then there's this mid-range engine. It's a 2.2 litre 4-cylinder turbo diesel engine, and it can only be chosen in all-wheel drive. Then there's the top engine, a 3.5 litre turbo V6, and that's also only all-wheel drive. Regardless of which engine you pick, all drive the wheels via an 8-speed torque converter automatic transmission. So how's the GV70 to drive? Well, if you're expecting something sporty like the G70 sedan, this isn't really anything like that. It's actually starkly different. In the grand scheme of the sports to luxury spectrum, this definitely sits over on the luxury side. That means it has a rather soft suspension tune and almost doughy steering that kind of misses the mark if you really want something a bit more reactive, like an Audi Q5, for example. It definitely feels like it's going to be more at home touring on the freeway than it will be carving up corners in your local national park. The refinement is really up there as well. The GV70 feels like it can play with those other luxury players with nice comfortable seats, a really quiet cabin, and it's really reinforced by that soft ride on the lower 2 variants that I've driven. Now, I've got to say the refinement is particularly good in this diesel variant here. The engine sounds distant. It's still got that pulling power of a diesel, but it just doesn't sound anything like one, which is pretty impressive. With that having been said, both variants that I've driven, the base rear-wheel drive petrol and this diesel, feel great in a straight line under acceleration. Where they kind of can't compete quite as well with some of their rivals is in that cornering. The steering does feel doughy, as we've already mentioned, but there is quite a bit of body roll in these variants as well. The one variant that I haven't driven, the 3.5 litre V6, is said to improve this with its firmer suspension tune and adaptive suspension package. My colleagues have driven this car. They've said it's almost firm to a fault in some ways, and the adaptive part of the equation doesn't seem to add too much to it. So it's obvious that there's still some tuning that needs to go on, both at the bottom end and at the top end of the spectrum. So that leaves our GV70 in an interesting spot. It's not the sportiest SUV, it's more luxurious. Maybe for someone who would normally consider a Lexus RX or something like that, it leans more into the soft airs and graces of a luxury car rather than a sporty one. But then again, unlike the Lexus with its hybrid options, the Genesis is offered with these very traditional and more sport-focused drivetrains, which is a real dichotomy for this brand. And that leads us to perhaps the strangest thing about the GV70 range, and that's that it's so traditionally powered. It's frankly pretty odd that a brand would launch an all-new nameplate in 2021 without any hybrid variant. Now, that's not to say Genesis isn't without its plans to plug that gap. There is the GV60, a completely different SUV that'll be lower but longer than this GV70 here, based on the Hyundai Ioniq 5, so it seems like the brand is just going to skip that hybrid step altogether and go straight to electrification. That car's set to launch sometime next year, so keep an eye out for that as well. With that lack of hybrid variants also comes a lack of fuel efficiency just generally across the range. The base 2.5 that I drove used well over 10 litres to 100 kilometres, and it takes mid-grade 95 fuel at a minimum. See official combined fuel consumption figures for each variant on screen now. During our launch testing, we didn't really drive each car for long enough to produce a fair as tested number, although I will say the diesel did outperform its petrol peers by quite a margin. On the safety front, every Genesis GV70 comes with the full suite of features, which is really great to see. Here's what you can expect. Standard safety items across the entire GV70 range include auto emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection as well as junction assist, lane keep assist with lane departure warning, blind spot monitoring with rear cross traffic alert and reverse auto emergency braking, adaptive cruise control, driver attention alert, both intelligent and manual speed limit assist, and a surround parking camera suite. To top it off, the GV70 has thorough coverage from its 8 airbags, including a new center airbag, as well as ISOFIX and top tether mounting points for the rear row. The GV70 does not yet have an ANCAP safety rating. Ownership is a great story as well. Genesis offers the same ownership promise as the Hyundai brand. That's 5 years of warranty, 5 years of roadside assist, covering unlimited kilometers. But the biggest selling point is servicing is entirely free. It doesn't cost you a cent to service any Genesis product for the first 5 years of ownership. Fresh metal is always good to mix up a segment, and the Genesis GV70 certainly is that. Should you consider it though? Well, if you're looking for a primarily design-led SUV that also offers the value and ownership promise of a mainstream automaker, this Genesis hits the nail on the head. We think it could use some work from behind the wheel, and it is sorely lacking any kind of hybridization, so keep that in mind. But for its debut offering, the GV70 is a surprisingly mature SUV.